We'll begin with Home Park, where 5 first-half goals from Burnley saw them smash Plymouth 5-0. It's the biggest away win in the Championship this season. And a complete and utter spanking, Justin Peach.
Ooh, yeah, it was a right old spanking, wasn't it? First half spanking as well. I think it was quite a ridiculous game in that sense, wasn't it? In that Burnley just dominated. But I think the most staggering, worrying thing is just the amount of goals that Plymouth allowed Burnley to score. It was a crazy game, a perfect game from Burnley, and you can only credit Scott Parker for drilling that ruthlessness into his team for this game. It wouldn't have been a case of do your business, lads, do it as usual. It would have been a case of get at him early, get the job done. We'll have the rest of the second half to just chill out and enjoy the South Coast.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, wasn't it? Because this was, well, the first half was anyway. It was just one of those perfect mixes of a team being absolutely honking and the other team being in top form. And we haven't seen Burnley in top form many times this season, have we? But this was definitely that. On occasion, they have been a bit guilty of being a bit tippy-tappy and just keeping possession for possession's sake, but this wasn't the case here, and maybe that is because Plymouth repeatedly decided to give them acres of space on many an occasion, but it's a lot easier said than done punishing teams when they do that, and Burnley did it superbly. The first 3 goals were so aesthetically pleasing. Josh Brownhill's assist for the first goal is just beautiful. He didn't exactly put it on a plate for Zian Fleming, but the technique is just outstanding. So they tore Plymouth to shreds in the first half, and we had a message from Joe, who's a Plymouth fan on our Discord. He was saying that Burnley could have had 3 penalties as well, which I haven't seen, but I'll take his word for it. So it could have been a lot worse for Plymouth in that first half. And then the second half was very much a friendly. Plymouth actually had more shots than Burnley in the second half, 3 to their 2, but the job was obviously done at that stage, and they never looked like getting anything from this game, obviously because they were 5-0 down, but I mean getting a goal either. And it's good to see Burnley really taking apart a team, Justin, because as I was sort of alluding to, we haven't seen that very often this season.
Yeah, and I know it was only Plymouth, I say in inverted commas, not to disrespect Argyle, but it was a nice fixture for Burnley to come up against. But it could have been a sticky one. It could have been an awkward one. We have seen a little bit of resilience develop under Muslich, and obviously we saw the Brentford win away in the FA Cup for Plymouth. So there has been a case of there being signs of life there. So this could have been a sticky one, an awkward one. Tuesday night down to Plymouth as well. It's a long trip for everyone. So for Burnley to go in with the game plan they did, and the ruthlessness they came out with as well, was really, really impressive. And as I say, yes, they beat bottom of the table, but they did it with such ease, such calmness. It really was an easy win, but one that I would like to think that teams that are around them that are chasing those automatic promotion spots would think, okay, they do mean business. And it is easy to caveat with Plymouth, but for the reasons I've just said, I don't think we should. But yeah, fair play to Scott Parker. We're seeing this team transition nicely now, and there's a bit of evolution there, and it's a really positive thing to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a statement win because no disrespect intended, but it is Plymouth, but it's whatever the next statement win or whatever the level blow is, a statement win, isn't it? Because, a 5-0 win away from home is always impressive, whichever way you look at it. And it's a reminder that Burnley have got a lot of attacking ability. We haven't seen it on many occasions this season because Burnley have been very conservative on plenty of occasions. It's obviously not a bad thing because it's been working brilliantly. And this is what that attacking talent can do when they're given the chance. I mean, Zian Fleming, someone who I don't think has been particularly outstanding this season. He's now got 7 goals in his last 9 games in all competitions. Jadon Anthony, been really good all season despite not having too many goal involvements to show for it. And Josh Brownhill is Josh Brownhill. He's always brilliant at Championship level. So while we have been critical of Burnley's attack on plenty of occasions this season, this shows what they are more than capable of doing, doesn't it? And Burnley are now unbeaten in 16 games in all competitions, something which does feel like it's gone under the radar a bit, but it's a sterling run of form from them, isn't it? And they've also signed John Joe Shelvey on a deal until the end of the season, Justin. The 32-year-old joins after leaving Turkish side Eyüpspor, which sounds like if someone from Yorkshire were to name a Turkish team. But John Joe Shelvey, Justin, why not?
Yeah, why? I
I mean, I said why not why, but
I think he's a player that brings a lot of experience and a range of passing that I don't think Burnley possess in their midfield at the moment. But again, we've been speaking about it in recent weeks. He's one of those players you forgot completely existed. And fair enough. But look, yeah, as I say, I think for those reasons of him being experienced and having a range of passing that the Burnley squad don't have, it gives Scott Parker a little bit of variety in terms of how he can approach his attacking play. So yeah, there's a positive there, but it's just one of them where I go, do you need him? Probably not, but he's got some skills or some attributes that he can bring to the squad, which is good.
Well, with Shelvey, Ashley Barnes and John Egan signing in the past 4 months, they're putting together a really dangerous side for the 2018-19 season. I can say that much for sure. Yeah, I don't know what John Joe Shelvey's like as a player anymore because I don't watch A-Up Sport very often. But we know what he was capable of when he was in the Premier League a few years ago now. And he was a very good player. Seeing him drop down to Championship level, I can't believe he's only 32. It feels like he's been around a lot longer than that. But yeah, I'm interested to see how he gets on. So yeah. Why not? As I say, back-to-back losses for new manager Miron Muslic at Plymouth now. Their only win since early November continues to be their victory away at Brentford in the FA Cup, which is just bizarre, isn't it? But they're 5 points adrift at the bottom of the Championship now, and it appears they'll soon be losing Morgan Whittaker. It's after he wasn't in the squad for this game. Muslic says he was selected, but didn't show up. Now, it may have been lost in translation, but what he went on to clarify is that he was late for this game and ended up watching it from the stands. However, it does come as he's been linked with a move away. Ironically, one of the clubs he's been linked with is Burnley. What do you think about all this, Justin?
It's disappointing from Whittaker because it's that sort of conduct I don't really like. Like, it's the communication from player to manager. If he didn't feel right for the game, then he should have communicated that to Muslic, and he clearly didn't. That's why Muslic was so surprised from not to quote unquote turn up, if you like. So yeah, it's disappointing from that perspective. I think it's inevitable that he's going to get bids. I'm surprised that clubs are clamouring over him despite his form this season being pretty poor. But look, he's a good quality player, and he can make the difference between a side going up and finishing in the playoffs, or vice versa, finishing in or outside the top six. So yeah, there's no surprise to see him linked with those clubs. It's just a shame we're getting this from him. It's not nice conduct for a player who was given a chance by Plymouth. So yeah, disappointing, but is there any commitment in football, Ryan? No. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I totally agree with everything you say there, Justin, because I think Morgan Whittaker has been still very much a standout in a pretty poor.
You can't not turn up for work.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that. It's a pretty blatant attempt by him to try and force through a move, isn't it? If you wanted my perspective on it, and it may seem a bit disrespectful to your current employers, but that's just how football works nowadays. You hear this stuff occasionally in the Premier League, and managers, sometimes letting player rot in the reserves in quotation marks, but a club like Plymouth can't afford to let a player as valuable as him just sit it out, and Whittaker probably knows that. So that's, if I'm being cynical, probably the reason why this has happened. Can you really blame him for wanting to leave? Not really, because he's being offered a chance between, or he's been offered a choice between a side fighting for promotion or a team who's more than likely to finish bottom this season. And maybe he feels like Plymouth are being a bit too stingy on how much they want for him. But the bottom line is, if he wants to make sure he does leave Plymouth this window, this is a pretty effective way of getting it done. It's not great if you're in any way associated to Plymouth Argyle, but that's just modern football, Justin.
Yeah, it's true. I'll take that into account. I'll stop showing up for when the BBC come knocking for me for their football flagship podcast.
Yeah, you may be waiting a while for that, mate. But you get my point, don't you? You get my point. It's just, unfortunately, that's just politics in football nowadays, I guess, isn't it?
Well, this is it. There are new tactics. It's agents. It's when was it in the mid-2000s when clubs were all found guilty and individuals were found guilty for football bungs, i.e., managers meeting agents and all that? I think this is just a modern way of doing it, not accusing clubs of any wrongdoing. it's just the agents are in the players' ears. The players get this idea, and then the communication happens between the agent and the player, and then because the communications happen between the club and the agent, it just becomes this merry-go-round of ridiculousness. And unfortunately, the outcome is a player not turning up for work, thinking it's the best possibility of getting a move away, which is just a shame, because all that does is just diminish his legacy and probably, love from Plymouth fans for him and what he's done for the club, because he has done a lot. He has done a hell of a lot. His goals kept Plymouth in the Championship last season.
Does he really care, though, Justin, if it gets him a move potentially to a Premier League side next season?
I'd like to think it does. That's not something that we're ever going to be privy to.
That's a bit naive, Justin.
It probably is. But as I say, Plymouth have played a hell of a huge role in his development as a player, because Morgan Whittaker was going nowhere at Swansea. He was lost. Plymouth gave him an opportunity. He took it. He was very good. And unfortunately, he's diminished that.
Yeah, probably fair. But at the same time, if he wants to try and force through this move before the window closes, this is a pretty effective way of doing it. So that's unfortunately modern day football, and we see it happen quite often at the top level. The fact that it's happening now at the bottom of the Championship is a sign of where football's gone, isn't it? Let's move on though, Justin. Sheffield United, they came from a goal down to win 2-1 away at Swansea. A proper game of two halves this, wasn't it? Because Swansea were really doing a job on them in the first half of this, weren't they?
Yeah, it was quite ridiculous watching the highlights back and seeing the numbers for the amount of chances that Swansea had in the first half. So yeah, it's disappointing for them to come away with a defeat. Obviously, we'll talk about it in a moment, but the red card changes the game in the second half significantly for the Swans. But I think it's a good reaction from the South Wales Derby defeat to Cardiff. I do think it was a positive performance. I think in another world as well, Swansea probably get a penalty for Per Harris going through on goal and not going down, because everything that happened up until the point that he lost the ball was a foul. It's quite ridiculous that he didn't get that given. But look, that's the inconsistency we get with officials sometimes. That's something we've got to accept. But yeah, this is what happens when you don't take your chances. You get punished by good teams. But I thought that was a very positive performance from Luke Williams' side.
Yeah, spot on. You mentioned the penalty, but there was, several other opportunities that Swansea had, and they probably should have been more than 1-0 up in that first half. Sheffield United were genuinely struggling to deal with them, something we haven't seen happen too often this season with them. And Swansea fans were probably feeling quite optimistic about getting something from the game at half-time. And then the second half starts, Swansea instantly concede to Ryan Brewster, of all people, of course, a former Swansea player. And then Harry Darling gets sent off a few minutes later. Almost the worst possible start to a half. And then the game went as expected. But I think the first 45 is a brilliant example of what Swansea can do under Luke Williams, and that's why it's a bit mad that there have been calls to sack him. He was complaining about the pitch at Swansea afterwards. He said, "We need to sort that out. We can't go on with that." It was like walking across an allotment at the end of the game, which is obviously not ideal when you want to play Luke Williams ball. So something to monitor in the coming weeks, I guess. Got to say, I wasn't sure it was a red card for Darling either, Justin. That seemed a bit harsh for me.
Yeah, watching it back, I think it's a clumsy tackle because he just mistimes it, but he steps over. Was it Ryan Brewster, the victim, if you like? In no way is that a red for me. I think the ref's angle was probably the wrong one because he will see it differently from us. He is right over it, so he's got that almost perfect view, if you like. But I think giving that as a red card, I think is quite soft. And I think this is the thing that really irritates me about football. It's a contact sport. There's going to be contact. There's going to be mistimed challenges. They can't all be red cards. So that's something that I need officials to understand, and I need to know they understand, which is a disappointing thing. But yeah, not a red for me, and that unfortunately allowed Sheffield United to take control in the game. Yeah,
absolutely right. It didn't seem like there was much contact, and there was very little intent either, because he was clearly going for the ball, wasn't he? So to give a straight red seemed harsh, and it's not a surprise that I've seen Swansea are appealing that particular decision. But Sheffield United, 3 wins on the bounce for them now. They are properly back in form aren't they? And that's before they've even really started to strengthen their team, because Brereton Diaz made his second debut for the club after rejoining them on loan in this game. Tom Cannon is also set to be announced imminently on a permanent deal from Leicester. I think he had his medical on Tuesday. So we are going to get that partnership which we were salivating over at the weekend, Justin, which is pretty frightening for the rest of the division, isn't it? But they're not done there yet, because they're also reportedly close to signing former Everton right-back John Joe Kenny, another player we can add to our players we've forgotten existed 11. He plays for Hertha Berlin nowadays in the German second tier. What do you think to that, Justin?
To John Joe Kenny?
Yeah.
I don't have too much of an opinion on him because I've not been following his career too closely. He burst through, didn't he, at Everton? And then his career just flatlined significantly, but him recovering it somewhat in Germany is a positive. But from what I remember of him, he was a very good attacking right back, which is probably a dimension that Sheffield United need. He did get down the wing fairly often for Everton, and I think in various loan spells he had thereafter. So it's not an expensive deal. I think he was asking for Hertha to accept the offer. So he's obviously desperate to get over to South Yorkshire as well. But yeah, I think he's going to add depth to a key area that Sheffield United need depth in. They need defenders, so him coming in does give them that option.
Yeah, he's told them he's told them he would like to return to England. So it seems like that move should be getting done before the window closes. And with Alfie Gilchrist, their current right back, Sheffield United, only on loan, it makes sense for them to get a right back in permanently, doesn't it? And he's been playing every week for Hertha in the German second tier. I won't profess to knowing how good he is nowadays, but he's always been regarded as a pretty solid fullback, hasn't he? Who pretty decent at putting the ball in the box. So he seems like a good move. So we'll see how he gets on if he does indeed sign. In extra Sheffield United news, Justin, they've made a new selection to their board. Have you seen this? Joe Russo, who's best known for being one of the directors of the two most recent Avengers films. Sheffield United's co-chairman said in a statement that we want to see the club competing in the Premier League on a regular basis. An important element of this is ensuring Sheffield United has the highest quality team, not just on the pitch, but in the boardroom as well. Don't really understand why this has happened, but it's quite cool, I guess, Justin.
It's a feather in the hat, isn't it? A feather in the bow. I can't remember what the saying is. You get the point.
Feather in the cap.
Yeah, that's the one. I don't understand it, because he's not going to have time to make these big key decisions, is he? He's a director in Hollywood. When's he going to get time to mull over the signing of John Joe Kenny, Ryan? This makes no sense.
Just got to put filming for the new Avengers film on hold a sec. I've just got to figure out whether John Joe Kenny is a better defender than Alfie Gilchrist. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. I don't really understand how a Hollywood director is qualified to be on the board of a championship football team, but I'll take Sheffield United's word for it. I will add, how are you feeling with this one? I don't really have an opinion on it. It's interesting because I'm very obviously familiar with him because I'm a big Marvel fan, but just seems a bit weird to me getting a director in. But why not?
I was expecting a more passionate retort from you. I thought you'd be buzzing with it. The Avengers leaking into the Championship, the crossover you always wanted, the wet dream Ryan has most nights.
Well, if they need a midfield destroyer, maybe they'll get Thanos in to play alongside Camo Hair. But yeah, a director to be a director at a football club seems very strange to me. But but we'll see how much he knows about the Blades going forwards. Anyway, a first half goal from Eliza Mayenda saw Sunderland win 1-0 away at Derby. I've got to say just now, I was at this game, and after losing my head at the weekend with Derby's loss to Watford, I didn't have high expectations for this one, particularly with a makeshift defence, which included no centre-backs for the Rams. But Derby actually played all right here. Certainly gave Sunderland a game, didn't they?
Yeah, I think this is the key thing with Derby. They've given most of the teams they come up against a game. It's just the quality that's missing at times and the variation in how they attack, which really doesn't help them at all. But I think if you're looking for a reaction to a poor defeat at the weekend, Derby gave it. It was a good performance. I wouldn't say a good performance, actually. It was a much improved performance that's needed. But I think what it does highlight is some need to change for Derby and Paul Warne. Corey Blackett-Taylor, for example, coming in was a real shining light in that in that game. Because his crosses for new striker Salveson from Norway they were very, very important. They gave Derby a really good dimension going forwards. But I just think he needs to get away from the players that aren't helping him. He needs to be brave. The players that aren't contributing, like Mendes Lang and Caden Jackson, they're not doing enough. He needs to take that risk because Derby are in a position where they have to start taking risks to win games.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Justin, Derby had some decent chances in the second half, and if they simply had better attackers, then they may have punished Sunderland here, because I don't think Sunderland were great by any means, and I was heading into this quite excited to see them in the flesh for the first time this season, but they found themselves on the back foot during a few spells of this game and struggled to put Derby to the sword, which was a bit surprising, but they got the job done in the end, I suppose. Also got to be mentioned, Wilson Isidore had a goal disallowed for some reason. He put the ball in the back of net, and there must have been at least a whole 60 seconds before the referee suddenly blew his whistle and chalked it off, and all the Sunderland players were on the sideline having a team talk with the manager, and then turned around with a complete look of utter shock on their face. It was just bizarre, and even more so when you watch the replays back, because I have very little idea why it's been disallowed.
Yeah, funnily enough, the BBC put a really good post out or article out on this. The PGML suggested it's down to the officials giving it as an offside for a trip on.
I was there at the game and I saw the referee signal for an offside, but then watching it afterwards, no one's offside. So it's just mad.
Yeah, there's no offside. Isidore's not offside. It's entirely bizarre, but that the referee's giving it as an offside, or the officials are giving it as offside, because Isidore's deemed to be active because of a trip on Ebo Adams, which does make sense logically. But he's not offside. But he's not offside. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was just a poorly managed moment from the officials. They're going to have those moments. Actually, no, they're not. I don't think we ever really see that in the Championship. So for it to happen at this level, it isn't really good enough, and the officials will know that. They'll have assessors there marking them down on it, and they'll learn from it, etc. Just an entirely bizarre moment that makes you wonder whether or not VAR would be useful in the Championship. But hey, what do I know?
Considering how long it took the officials to make a decision here, it was like having VAR in the Championship, wasn't it? It was so weird. But Paul Wilson still, after missing 2 penalties at the weekend, and now this, he cannot catch a break.
It was a beautiful goal as well.
It was an unbelievable finish. You know, one of those where it's like, he literally cannot hit it any higher than where he has done, because it's hit the bar and then bounced down just, the other side of the bar. So it was a beautiful finish. And poor lad. But anyway, not a great showing by Sunderland. It's their first away win in 4, keeps the pressure on the top 2, so they'll certainly take it. And they look set to make it back-to-back wins, because they're cashing in their Plymouth at home voucher this weekend. So well done to them in advance. But as mentioned earlier, Derby County have been rocked with injuries. They didn't have a centre-back on the pitch throughout this game, and that's because Curtis Nelson's set to miss the rest of the season with a knee injury. He was one of just 7 outfield players who have featured in every minute across the Championship this season. So a big blow for the Rams, Justin.
Yeah, it's a huge blow. I don't think people realise how good Curtis Nelson is. I think his lack of pace is an issue, but he heads everything. And if you've got defenders like that, they are very, very valuable, because I think football's moved in such a direction that they're very rare. So yeah, he's a good player. He's a calm player. And it's a huge shame, and also a huge threat from set pieces. Derby have been very active scoring from set pieces. A lot of these set pieces are aimed towards him to cause a little bit of chaos. And now they don't have that facet. I really do sit here worried. I think that's an important thing that people are going to overlook. Yes, they're missing a defender, but they're missing arguably their most important asset from attacking set pieces now. And yeah, that's the huge concern for me.
And as we've said on plenty of occasions this season, if Derby are facing a team who can defend set pieces, then they haven't got much else. So that's a bit of a problem for Derby, and they may very well have no centre-backs left by the end of January, because the Telegraph is reporting they've rejected a new bid from Brighton for Aaron Cashin. That is said to be with a loan back for the rest of the season. So maybe I'm just being a bit harsh, but, he'll be a centre-back for Derby in a couple of weeks. Then who knows when the transfer window officially closes. But yeah, they need to sign somebody now, though, you'd have thought. But Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll round off the automatic promotion chat and get on to some of the other games from across the Championship, include Oxford's ridiculous form. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and we're rounding off all the midweek action from across the Championship. We've just spoken about all the automatic promotion contenders, Justin, apart from the team who remain top of the table. It's, of course, Leeds United. They won 2-0 against Norwich, and they restricted Norwich to just 3 shots in the entirety of that 90 minutes. So pretty straightforward for Leeds in the end.
It was a good performance. It's a performance that they've been putting in most weeks, really, where they've been keeping opposition largely at bay, not giving them any chances. Meslier has had 3 shots and he's kept a clean sheet. That's positive. It's huge positive. I think that's the bell you need to ring here, is he's not lost his arse. But yeah, from a Leeds perspective, they're coming into this game knowing Sunderland have picked up 3 points. Obviously, Burnley were playing at the same time. Sheffield United have picked up 3 points as well. So it could have been a nervy fixture for them, but it wasn't. They just did what they did. They took control of a game. They were clinical, and they come away with a comfortable 2-0 win once more.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Leeds are pretty much the last team you want to concede an early goal to, aren't they? Because if you manage to hold out until half time, you may get some nerves creeping in. But if they get that early goal, then it's just a mountain to climb straight from the off, isn't it? And not for the first time this season, Leeds took a bit of time to kill this game off. However, they never look like not winning it, so you can't really hold anything against them. Good to see Junior Firpo back for this one. He gives them a bit extra in attack if they needed any more. And it's now 12 wins from 13 at Ellen Road, so they are just cruising past teams there, aren't they? Just kind of ticking them off as they go along. Another solid win for Leeds. And just in this promotion race is really picking up pace now, isn't it? Because it's a 4-horse race, we know that, because it's been like that for a while now. But none of those 4 look like blinking right now, do they? They're all in pretty good form.
Yeah, they've all come out of Christmas in pretty good shape, which I think is a huge surprise. Actually, I don't think we really see this. We see teams trip over a little bit. You get to January, players start getting linked with moves, and yeah, it can be a very awkward time. But actually, the performances the teams are putting in, I know Sheffield United weren't great in the first half against Swansea, but they came out in the second half and took control of the game. And I think the most impressive thing is they've all handled really tough moments this season quite well. Leeds with losing Ampadu and Gruev, adapting very well to their situation. Obviously, Elim Maslier being a nightmare as well. They've managed to. That's 2 pops at him now. Sorry, Elian, but
he deserves it.
Well, your words not mine. Yeah, they've had to deal with that. Sunderland, they've had an injury crisis sort of around October time, and they weren't losing many games as a result of that, but they were drawing and not winning them. Sheffield United going for an injury crisis as well. Burnley with a transfer bedlam in August. It was a they've had some very tumultuous moments, these teams, and they've come out the other end of them really well. They've coped really well. And, what have we said repeatedly? We're asking for an automatic promotion race. This is, for me, a little bit more interesting than the one we got last year. If I was to be controversial, because you got teams I think that are on a very even keel this season. Didn't have that last season.
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually, Justin. I think I very much enjoyed the promotion race last season. Whether it's better than this one or not, I don't know, but I think they're definitely on a more even keel, and I think predicting who's actually going up at this stage is an absolute nightmare. So yeah, it's really shaping up to be a fascinating final 16 games of the Championship season, because right now it's really hard to separate these 4 teams, and with them all being in a pretty good vein of form, no one seems like they're fading away, does it, anytime soon? And with the January window still open and all 4 looking to strengthen, Leeds maybe not as much as the others are 3, but still looking to strengthen nonetheless. It's shaping up to be a really, really fascinating final few weeks of the season. On Monday night, it is Burnley v Leeds, which is such a huge game in the grand scheme of the Championship season, isn't it? So that's going to be a huge, huge contest. But let's move away from the automatic promotion race, Justin, and talk about the form team in the division, really, because there was a 5-goal thriller at the Casa as Oxford beat Luton 3-2 to give Matt Bloomfield his first loss as manager of the Hatters. Here's a stat for you, Justin, from Phil Gilman on Twitter. Oxford v Luton was a top-tier fixture in 1988, a second-tier fixture in 1994, a third-tier fixture in 1999, a fourth-tier fixture in 2001, a non-league fixture in 2009. It was then a fourth-tier fixture in 2015, a third-tier fixture in 2018, and now a second-tier fixture in 2025. I look forward to Luton v Oxford in the Premier League in 2030. But Gazza Rowett's boys came from behind twice in this one, and it's another incredible win for the Rowett Rocket, Justin.
It really is. You can't measure character. You can't measure character. You can measure quality of players, but not character. So to come from behind twice in this game and to come out with 3 points is as a positive indictment as you can put on Garrett Rowett having an impact on this team. The form is the big one. That's how we know they're doing better under Garrett Rowett. But the measure of their character in games is there for everyone to see. They're coming from behind. They are seeing games out. They are holding on to leads like it's for absolutely everything. And I think that's how you can measure the impact of a manager, is how a squad or a team responds to those moments. So yeah, I can't praise Gary Rowett enough. Oxford are on a roll. Are we dreaming of the playoffs at this point? Who knows? But what they're doing at the moment is just incredible, simply incredible.
Yeah, it's insane, really, isn't it? It was a great win for Oxford. Got to be said, Luton's defending for all 3 goals was so turgid. How they've managed to let 2 crosses into the middle of the box be scored on the volley is just so poor. And then the winner. Oh my God. Honestly, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is worth searching out. The winner is absolutely criminal. Greg Lee, who scored it, was given a completely free header 6 yards out. He didn't even have to jump for it. It's almost the easiest header any professional footballer will ever get. Yes. So disgraceful defending from Luton, and more about them shortly, but a heroic comeback from Oxford to give them back-to-back wins, and a ridiculous form continues, and Gary Rowett's now won 17 points from a possible 21 since taking over. 17 points from 21. That is ludicrous. And to put that into perspective, this season, Des Buckingham won 18 points despite being in charge of 3 times as many games as Rowett. So it is quite difficult to comprehend this turnaround in form, Justin, I find.
It absolutely is, but I'm not surprised. I think that's the biggest thing. His ability to get into a team, immediately identify what their strengths are and play to them is absolutely bang on. And not only that...
I get what you mean, Justin, but surely you've got to say it is a bit of a surprise, because as much as we rate Guy Rowett, this turnaround's just something we have hardly ever seen before at this level.
Okay, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. The reason I'm not surprised is, firstly, Gary Rowett being as good as he is, but also, have they played teams outside of the top 10? I think they've just played Blackburn in this run. So they have had a nice run of games in the sense that they've not played any of the top 6 yet. Obviously, they'd have played Blackburn while they were in the top 6, but that's another point. So they haven't had really, really hard games. They have not had a large collection of teams in the top 10 either. So run of games wise, it's been a nice group of games for Gary Rowett to have. But the thing he needs to do, he needs to win them. He needs to get points on the board in these games, and he's done that. And this one could have been a difficult game. They did go behind twice. It could have been a completely different outcome. But the measure of the character of Gary Rowett and his team and what he instills in the players is there. So I'm not that surprised that he's come in and had this impact on the team. I'm not. I think what we can compare it to is how poor they were under Des Buckingham. But actually, given how good and what Gary Rowett can do, that's the reason why I'm not surprised. Biggest example I can give is when he came into Derby, he dropped Matai Vydra in the number 10 role, gave him a free roam. Matai Vydra won the Golden Boot that year. Championship winner Nigel Pearson and former England manager Steve McLaren struggled with the Matai Vydra conundrum at Derby. Gary Rowett came in, saw what he could do, saw his strengths, and plotted him in a position where he knew he was going to get the best out of him. And we're seeing that with Oxford now. Premzor Playetta, his change in form is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd, but we're seeing it because Gary Rowett knows exactly what he's doing. So Ryan, to round off the point, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of underestimating the turnaround in form, really, because, well, again, I obviously rate Gary Rowett very highly. I think we have got to remember that Des Buckingham, when he got sacked, I genuinely do think Oxford were on a similar kind of level to Plymouth. That's how poor they were. They were playing really badly. Just I think that's massive revisionism on your behalf. But they were looking well on course. Okay. They were looking well on course for League One, and so for them to get 17 points from a possible 21 is just ridiculous. And we're now just over a month since that sacking of Buckingham. Not even that long, just over a month, and we're now they're now 14th, 9 points clear of the bottom three. And I just cannot think of too many turnarounds like this in such a quick amount of time. I mean, we lauded Danny Rawle and Marty Cifuentes last season for saving Wednesday and QPR, respectively. But even that took a bit of time getting to grips with things. Rowett's come in and just instantly shoved a rocket up their backsides. And we're getting to the point now where, I mean, you can never say never in the Championship, but Oxford will probably be fine this season, which is an astonishing feat with their budget alone. And that's before you even get onto the position Oxford were in when Rowett came in.
Yeah, I think Ed Waldron's the head of recruitment. He deserves a lot of credit for piecing this team together. And their identity is needed to change, hasn't it? Because they've gone from a team who their identity was playing on the ground football to Rowett ball, which is a little bit of a variation of everything. But he needs winners. He needs good characters. He needs, players with high energy, with experience, and they're delivering that even in January. So, yeah, Gary Rowett does deserve a lot of credit, but the recruitment team, I think, have already put together a decent squad that just needed simplifying, and we're getting that, which again it's why I'm not surprised. It's why I'm saying that Oxford have given a lot of teams they played against this season, despite a lot of defeats, good games. It's not been enough to get results, but I don't think they've been as poor as you make out. Not as poor as Plymouth anyway. So I don't think that's the case. So yeah, I think what we've got here is a team that were not in as bad a place as some might make out, with a manager who knows exactly what he's doing, and it's a really good formula.
Again, I do think that is revisionism, because
it's not. I've had that opinion the entire season.
Okay, don't know what you were watching then, but anyway, we'll digress and move on, because one team we can definitely agree on, Justin, is Luton Town right now. Just 1 point from their last 6 league games. They failed to win a single point away from home for 131 days. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? And this is, of course, only Matt Bloomfield's second game in charge, but he got a pretty stern reminder here, as I'm sure he's probably aware already of how big a job he's got on his hands turning things around at Luton, Justin.
Yeah, I'm worried about the defending. That's the main thing. Mark McGuinness came out after the game and said, well, we need to get the basics right. I think I've heard Carlton Morris say that this season, and maybe Jordan Clark as well after games. I am vastly concerned. I'm not going to throw it all at Matt Bloomfield. He doesn't deserve it. He's only just come into the team. But this Luton team, this squad might be in a worse state, in a worse place than we imagined. And again, the defending in this game, I think, is the real criminal thing. You've gone through all the goals. That's absolutely fine. That Greg Lee goal. There's one thing you failed to mention is Greg Lee's a left back, and he's been given that much time. Who's taking leadership and responsibility in that defence to organise them? No one. The lack of leadership, the lack of drive and fight has been evident. The perceived of that anyway has been evident all season, and unfortunately, Matt Bloomfield he's got a firefight now. He's got a firefight, because Luton, I think, are in serious danger of going down again, because the defending is that in this Oxford game, you cannot correct it in the matter of days. That takes a while. You can't drill things into the players' brains. You can't. That is complete neglect from them. Ridiculous. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I think games like this are basically a microcosm of what I was saying last week, that while I think the Bloomfield appointment is a very good one and makes a lot of sense, it might just be too big a job turning this ship around, because you've got a lot of very talented players here who are just playing like shadows of the players that they are. No Championship team should ever be conceding the 3 goals Luton did against Oxford, let alone with a £10 million centre-back and two full-backs who will be hoping to play at the World Cup next year. So do Luton necessarily need a manager? It's almost like they need a psychologist to come in and figure out what's wrong with these players, or better yet, an exorcism. That's the stage we're at, where what is going on? Because they just seem so mentally fragile right now. And I wasn't watching this game live, but if I did, I would have definitely bet money on Oxford to win when they were behind, at either of the times they were behind, because it's just so predictable with Luton that they will capitulate. And the thing is, Matt Bloomfield definitely didn't have to deal with anything like this at Wycombe. So turning this around is a bloody big job to give to a manager like him, who is still relatively inexperienced at Championship level. Well,
he's completely inexperienced at Championship level. He's never managed at this level before.
Compared to other Championship managers.
Yeah. It's a mighty task, and I like the appointment. I think it's ambitious, but you have to acknowledge Luton's position and the mistakes and the issues they've had all season. That Rob Edwards, a more experienced manager at this level than Matt Bloomfield, he struggled to negate and improve. It's really hard because we've been pointing the finger at Rob Edwards for such a long time for being so stubborn in what he does. And I just think Luton have been in such a bad place for such a long time that we're now at a point where all of that negativity is ingrained in the players, and they're making mistake after mistake after mistake. They're letting players go, not marking, etc. It's a problem. It's a huge problem, a huge concern. And as I say, there's a real danger of Luton going down again because the way they defend is frightening. It's frightening.
They've got Millwall at home this weekend, which is two teams out of form. So definitely one to keep an eye on for the neutral this weekend. Let's go to Tony Mowbray, who lost his first game as West Brom boss away at his old side Middlesbrough. 2-0 it finished in that one. Middlesbrough, the big party poopers, Justin.
Yeah, before I mention the football, Tony Mowbray explained, I think in his post-match press, he said that Middlesbrough fans' dads were walking up with their young kids to Tony Mowbray for a chat and oozing over, and he was just oozing over the love of him from Borough fans, and it was just lovely to see. Tony Mowbray's a reminder of things outside of football, and he's great. It's great. What a guy. But yeah, it's a shame that he couldn't get a result on his in his first game back, Tony Mowbray, and obviously coming up against a team like so revered at in Middlesbrough as well is a disappointing thing, but. I think from West Brom's perspective, there'll be moments that they'll want to improve. So, conceding a shot from 30 yards out and it bouncing in front of the goalkeeper, that was disappointing from their perspective. And I think they were in the game, and then the Bendo goal was a bit of a sucker punch for them. So there'll be a lot of things for Tony Mowbray to take away from this game. But yeah, it's just disappointing he couldn't get a result.
I think you're underestimating that Hayden Hackney goal. That was a really, really nice goal from him, and the Bendo goal, finding the top bin perfectly. That was an unbelievable finish from him. But yeah, it wasn't the kind of performance which shows Middlesbrough are back with a bang. This was just their second win in 8 games, but it was desperately needed, wasn't it? Because they've not been playing well at all, and it's not been like early in the season where they were playing well but just not getting results. They've just not been playing well in general. And while I don't think this was necessarily them back with a bang, it's a result that they desperately needed, wasn't it? Just to build some confidence, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Middlesbrough have created an expectation that we need to see them swashbuckling all the time, but sometimes they need to win it a little bit ugly. And whilst they didn't win it, hideously against West Brom, they weren't that swashbuckling side that we know. I mean, both the goals they scored were from outside the box, for example. So were they carving West Brom open on the regular? No. But it was an important win. It was a clean sheet. And when you're in a bad run of form, or in a poor moment that Middlesbrough were, sometimes just getting a win is really, really important. That gets you out of a lot of, I wouldn't say danger, but it starts to build that confidence and belief again. So yeah, I think getting the win in this case is as important. Obviously getting a clean sheet as well, again, is hugely vital for Middlesbrough pushing forwards, because keeping clean sheets, I think, will be the difference between them finishing in and out the top 6 this season. They'll score a lot of goals, but they concede too many. So keeping clean sheets is pivotal.
Well, Middlesbrough have been dealt some huge news in the past 48 hours. Ben Doak is set to be staying for the rest of the season. It's after Liverpool's deadline to recall him from his loan passed. The likes of Crystal Palace have been showing interest in signing him on a permanent basis, but it seems as if Liverpool's asking price has scared them off. So, huge news, isn't it, Justin? Because even during this poor run of form for Middlesbrough, he's been without a doubt one of the standout players for them still.
Yeah, he's just a quality winger. I mean, we saw him against West Brom, ironically. When I say winger, like, he just reminds me of the classic winger who gets to the byline and gets crosses in. We don't see it very often, but ironically, he cut inside against West Brom and scored beautifully with his left foot. So he's clearly showing he can mix his game up. But and yeah, it is huge news because of how important I think he has been to Middlesbrough, but also the strength in depth they've now got in attack. It's just a frightening prospect. And if you lose a player of Ben Doak's quality, and obviously they've sold Isaiah Jones as well, so skill profile, attribute profiles similar. They've lost that facet of their attack now, but that's not the case. They've got Doak until the end of the season, and that's a huge boost for Middlesbrough in an attacking sense, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm delighted that we're still going to be seeing him playing in the Championship because I rate him so highly for someone who's only just turned 19. He is frighteningly good. So it's a massive boost for Borough managing to keep hold of him. One player who has been recalled is defender George Edmondson. He has only missed 4 league games all season for Borough, but Ipswich decided to take him back. It sounds as if they want to try and get him permanently, so watch this space. They've also reportedly entered the race for Morgan Whittaker. Not sure how that would work, having him and Ben Doak in the same team, but I'd love to see it. So let's see if that happens. So yeah, Middlesbrough definitely set to be one of the busier clubs in the final couple of weeks of the window. Got to give a shout out as well for the Middlesbrough fan who went to this game in his work gear. one of the pictures of the season, without a doubt. He was there dressed in a high-vis helmet, goggles and everything. It was fantastic stuff. So kudos to that man. And the final game we'll discuss from the midweek action, Justin, is QPR, whose ridiculous form shows no signs of stopping. They won 2-1 away at Hull City. Justin, this turnaround, get this, at mid-November, QPR had played 15, won 1, drawn 7, lost 7. They were bottom of the Championship. Since mid-November, they've played 13, won 8, drawn 4, lost 1. Only Leeds United have won more points than them in that time. It's absolutely mind-blowing, Justin.
And when you consider or bring into the fact that they've not got a fully fit squad, they've got a hell of a lot of injuries and players out. And during this run of form, they've not had a striker fit. McElfry, Chancella, both have been injured. They've had to make do with playing Ryan Coley at centre forward at times, and he's not a natural centre forward. It's quite ridiculous. And Marty Cifuentes, incredibly, he said it's down to the players and not him, which I think is absolutely absurd. This guy is clearly far too humble for his own good, because I think he deserves an immense amount of credit. The reason QPR was struggling heavily was because they were trying to be a little bit more progressive and play out from the back, but the pragmatism he's had to readopt. I think has been a huge swing in form, but also I think the faith he's shown in several young players. I think he's down to him, and again trying to find a formula that works when he's got no players available. Yeah, it's just a ridiculous facet. And again, character-wise, I see a team more comfortable with being uncomfortable in games. They can withstand long periods of pressure and do so without crumbling, which they weren't doing up until this change in form. So yeah, it's a huge turnaround. We talk about Oxford being incredible. QPR deserve a hell of a lot of credit as well, because this turnaround in form that they've embarked on is bonkers. Yeah,
it really, really is. It's absolutely an insane turnaround in form. And may I suggest that Matt Bloomfield could do with giving Marty Cifuentes a quick ring and asking him for tips on how to turn around teams mentally. Because for a team to go from bottom of the table looking so out of confidence and then getting essentially the same group of players to be playing as well as they have done recently is just mind-blowing, really, isn't it? And now you look at the table, they're only 4 points off the top 6. Could we really rule out that from happening at this stage? In fact, you'd probably say they're looking the most likely out of the teams outside of the top six, because they are the team obviously in form with 4 wins on the bounce. It's just crazy. So Marty Cifuentes, he did this around the same time as last season, didn't he? Where he came in at QPR and it took a bit of time for him to get going, but then something just seemed to click and they went flying on this crazy run of form. And maybe it's just, what's the opposite to hibernating? Maybe that's what he does when he's a manager. He absolutely just flourishes during winter time. It's insane, really. So well done to him. And QPR looking like they're bearing down on the top 6 right now. Whether they actually get a top 6 place is another thing, but you'd say that's a definite possibility when it looked like the complete opposite just a couple of months ago. It's crazy. Quick word on Hull, Justin. They've signed Cal Joseph from Blackpool for a reported fee of £2.5 million. The 23-year-old scored 8 goals in 24 games in League One. Hull certainly seem like the busiest team in the Championship this January window. This is another one of the additions that they're bringing in.
Yeah, well, Hull needed to be busy, didn't they? Because they've had a couple of injuries to key players like Liam Miller and Mohamed Baloumi as well. So they've needed to be busy, but also they needed to strengthen an attack that was poorly recruited in the summer. So I think I'm going for Carl Joseph. Look, he's not overly prolific, but I think he's got a physical profile that Hull need. He reminds me of a bit of just a classic number 9. He's 6'1". He's a physical presence, and he's going to score goals as well. So he brings a lot of positivity. I think it was when he first came through, signed by Swansea with a lot of potential. Scored 5 or so goals in 20 odd appearances for Wigan, 18 in League One. His career took a while to get going, but the move to Blackpool really did. Yeah, trampoline him up to the big time in Hull City, I guess.
Trampoline him up.
I wanted to say bounce, but I didn't know how to sort of put that together in something, so I went with trampoline. Trampolines are very springy.
Trampoline. Yeah, it makes sense. I don't hate it. It's just one of your.
I've not said trampoline out loud for about 10 years.
Okay. That's fine as well. You're a big trampolining fan, were you, back in the day?
I used to. I've broken my elbow on a trampoline, but also I was put off in school by someone trampolining. We went to the same school, you know the story. Someone trampolined and bounced, and both their knees. He hit both his eyes with his knees, and had to go to hospital. He had 2 black eyes for about 3 months. Story. Yeah, he had black eyes for about 3 months because of trampolining.
Who was that?
It was a guy called.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that story now. Yeah, fine.
But anyway, trampolining,
maybe
dangerous.
Producer Tom should bleep out his name, but that's fine. That's always good.
Cal Joseph, the football trampoline.
Yes, of course. Maybe not a compliment, really, because if his first touch is like a trampoline, that's very much doing him a disservice, isn't it? Sticking with Hull, going back to Hull, really, we've gone a bit off topic here, haven't we? Carl Rushworth has been recalled. He's been their number 1 choice goalkeeper for pretty much the whole season, so that's a big blow. Losing him, I think it came a bit out of the blue for Hull as well. So yeah, going to have to try and find a new number 1 from the looks of it, as well as a few other additions that they've been trying to do ever since the window started. So yeah, Hull, definitely the busiest club in the Championship this window. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been the Second Tier Midweek Show. We've been talking about all the midweek action from across the Championship, and we'll of course be back again tomorrow with the preview show brought to you by SBK. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.